Sandra. Thanks for joining me in the backyard on this beautiful fall day. It sure has been a couple of gorgeous weeks of weather here in southwestern Ontario, but whether we like it or not, fall is here and it's soon time to do some of those end of season jobs that we all kind of dread because that means that our beautiful summer weather is coming to an end. Here I've brought today for you my Mandevilla and a Dipladenia to show you how you can try to store them over in your home for the winter. These are both tropical plants and will not survive outside if they're left outside in southwestern Ontario. So you want to take care of this before they get hit with frost, okay? Because they are not going to be happy if they get frost. Mandevillas and Dipladenias, people often use the words interchangeably, and they are two different species of plants. Within those species, there's many varieties. So sometimes you'll see a Mandevilla vine and it's got bigger leaves or a little smaller leaves, but Mandevillas have one main characteristic that differentiate them, and that is that the vines climb upwards, okay? Which means you're almost always gonna find them with a trellis in the pot when you buy it. Now sometimes you get a little wee Mandevilla, so it won't be on a trellis yet because it needs to be trellised as it grows, but that's the biggest difference. The leaves are bigger as well, and it has more of an upright habit, okay? Dipladenias, you'll usually see these in hanging baskets. So if you see a flower like this in a hanging basket, it's going to be a Dipladenia. If you put a Mandevilla in a hanging basket, it's going to climb up the hanging basket strings. If you put a Dipladenia in the hanging basket, it's going to flow over the edges of the pot. You may get some vines that still come out and you'll be like, oh no, it's a Mandevilla. But those vines aren't going to go upwards on the hangers. They're going to have more of a downward habit, okay? So Dipladenias are more like a shrub and they're more bushing. Mandevillas are more of a vine and they're more upright, okay? Either way, they both take the same kind of care. So both Mandevillas and Dipladenias love hot weather because they're native to South America. They grow in the rainforest there. So they really do need warm weather, and ideally they don't really start to flower until the overnight temperatures are 18 degrees Celsius, 65 Fahrenheit or warmer, which is why if you get a cool June, they don't really perform all that well. But once you get into the heat of July and August and into September, they're just gorgeous. And they're really very easy to care for. They have somewhat of a drought tolerance. You still have to water them, but they do like to dry out a little bit between waterings. So they're a little more forgiving in the hanging basket world than say a petunia would be. And like I said, they flower really well. You only need to feed them once every couple weeks. Especially the hanging baskets that we bring in usually have some slow release fertilizer in there to help you as well. But yeah, a little bit of water soluble fertilizer once or twice a summer and you're gonna have a gorgeous display of flower. So now the fun part, or the sad part, I guess. For me it's sad because I hate cutting these guys back when they're so gorgeous, but I want to bring them in the house. Dipladenias and Mandevillas have a natural dormant period from October to April. So no matter whether they were in a warm above 18 environment, above 65 Fahrenheit environment all winter long, they're still going to go dormant, which means they're going to pretty much completely stop growing, and they very likely will drop their leaves. Guaranteed to do so if you store them the way I do in my cold storage in my basement. Some people like to store them in their house as a houseplant, still likely going to drop most of their leaves. So either way, the step to prepping them to bring them inside is the same. You're going to cut them back and it's going to be pretty drastic, and at the end you're going to think, oh my gosh, did I kill this thing? Almost certainly you won't, as long as you leave something there for it to grow again from. So I'm going to start with the little guy because he's a little bit easier to handle. You're going to need a good pair of clippers. I actually brought two different kind here. One's a little sturdier, one's a little smaller, just in case. So I've got some variety, but you're gonna need to really start clipping. And with this little pot, I'm gonna clip it back till there's only about 6 inches of growth left. And it's like I said, it's gonna look sad when I'm done. And you're gonna think, oh Sandra, really? But the answer is yes. Because I am going to take this thing and I'm gonna put it in my cold storage in my basement, and I'm gonna ignore it. I'm gonna check it maybe, probably around Christmas, make sure that the soil isn't completely dried out. But remember, it's not actively growing, so it doesn't really need much water. And it's really that simple. This milky stuff that comes out of the cutoffs is quite sticky, so if you get it on your hands, just wash that off. But other than that, I fully anticipate that all of these leaves are gonna fall off and I'm gonna be left with sticks. So the more I remove, the less I have to clean up in my basement, okay? And it's really, like, it's that simple. All the new growth is gonna come from the bottom anyways next year. So that's what I'm gonna do with that guy. Like I said, he looks pretty sad considering how beautiful he was a few minutes ago, but it's the job that needs to be done. Now, on to the big guy. Now, there is a trellis in here as well. So I'm gonna cut these back. Now that one I cut back to about 6 inches. This guy I'm gonna try to leave closer to probably 10 or 12 inches. But it's the same kind of drastic haircut. And I've done this a time or two before, so I'm pretty bold about it. You may want to take your time doing it, but the end result is going to be the same. All of this pretty stuff's got to go because it just can't winter over, unfortunately. And quite frankly, I don't want to have to clean it up inside my house. I'm also going to remove any debris around the bottom. This one, I think this pot had some mulch put in it. I'll leave that because that's not going to be a problem at all. Okay, let's turn it around. Again, I'm sorry, Mr. Mandevilla. I'm going to cut off the string here that's holding it up. I'll put new strings on it again next year. Even if we have, once in a while, we've tried to sabo a couple of these that are left over at the greenhouse over winter in the greenhouse. And even with the brightness of the greenhouse, they still lose almost all of their leaves. And it's because it goes into its dormant period. It's not that it needs, not there's anything wrong with it. It's just that's the life cycle of the plant. Okay, I'm sorry. There you go. Okay. Okay, sad, but that's what I'm going to be left with. Now the good news is, even though all these leaves are probably going to fall off, the new growth is going to start from the base of all of these stems next spring, and it's going to be beautiful, okay? So like I said, I'm going to put that in my basement. If you don't have a basement, you can store it in a semi-heated garage. You've got to make sure it stays above 7 degrees Celsius, okay? They really don't like to be cold. If you don't have a garage, you can put it in your house. But again, it may retain some of these leaves, it may lose most of them. Either way, it will grow again next spring. So if you put it in your garage or your basement, when you get to about mid to late March, you're gonna bring it into a heated space in your house with a nice bright window, preferably south facing, but get it as much light as you possibly can, and be patient. It's gonna take a while to come out of dormancy and start to grow. You may think you've killed it, may take a little while, but just be patient. Again, don't overwater it. You do need to make sure there's some moisture there, but again, it's gonna take some time to grow, which means it's not gonna take a lot of water at the beginning. Just give it water as needed. Stick your finger in the soil. If there's some moisture there, don't worry about it. If it's dry, give it a bit of water. Just be a bit conservative about that. Use your best judgment. And then you have to wait to put it outside until there's zero risk of frost. So you're looking at probably the end of May or early June, depending on our spring. And again, you're just gonna have to be patient till it gets its roots going and its leaves coming out to get some flowers. You really do need those warm temperatures of July and August. So that's why when you pick them up at the greenhouse in May, of course they're flowering already, but it's because they've been heated up artificially indoors in the greenhouse. So if you're lucky enough to have a greenhouse, then you can get those blooms a little earlier. But for most homeowners, it's just gonna take a little while longer for them to start blooming. But other than that, that is how you winter over a Mandevilla. During its dormant months, don't fertilize it. And I would even wait to fertilize it probably in the spring till you get it outside and it's starting to really actively grow. Then give it a little bit of fertilizer. Anything that's got a bloom booster would be what I would recommend because you're gonna get those really gorgeous flowers. And other than that, they're a pretty simple plant and they sure do flower beautifully all summer. Leave me some comments if you've got any questions. Thanks so much for watching.